Hello everyone, and welcome back to Strategic Labs, the channel where we deeply analyze the ideas, narratives, and strategies behind the documents.
We are Sarah and Mark.
Today we are going to dive into the material we have on the table. Before we start, please leave a like, share the episode, subscribe to the channel, and remember to check the description for the links to access the original material.
All right, let's get into it. You know, when most people think of India, they think of its booming economy, its vibrant culture, its democracy. But our source material today, from Edward H. Whitmore, peels back that layer to show us something else entirely: a hidden struggle for power, a covert intelligence war that's really shaping India's future.
Yeah, and this quote right here, it just perfectly captures that idea. It paints this picture of two Indias, really. One that we all see, the one of progress and diplomacy, and then there's this other one, a shadow realm, where the real battles are being fought, not with armies, but in silence. We're talking about a constant contest of covert ops that's redefining security in South Asia.
So, the big question is, what's driving this shadow war? Where does it all come from? Well, the central argument in our source material is that India's intelligence apparatus wasn't just, created out of thin air. It was literally forged in the fire of relentless, multi-front pressure from rivals who would much rather operate in the shadows than out in the open.
And that pressure is coming from two very, very different directions. To the west, you have Pakistan, which the source describes as waging this persistent shadow war through proxies, fueling insurgency. It's a constant, grinding duel of intelligence services. But then you look north to China, and it's a totally different playbook. We're talking sophisticated surveillance, high-altitude incursions, and a massive cyber warfare component. So two borders, but two completely different kinds of threats.
And you'd think that's enough, but the pressure isn't just coming from the outside. The source material really emphasizes this point. There's this incredibly complex web of internal challenges. You've got long-running insurgencies, radicalized cells popping up in cities. It creates this chaotic domestic battlefield that just makes the entire strategic picture so much more complicated for India's security forces.
So to deal with all these layers of threats, India had to develop its own tools, right? It built two main intelligence agencies, each one designed for a very specific job, one to look outward and one to guard the homeland. They basically became the nation's eyes and its shield.
First up, you have RAW, which stands for the Research and Analysis Wing. The easiest way to think of RAW is as India's external eyes. It was formed back in 1968, right after some pretty tough intelligence failures. Its entire mission is focused outward, gathering foreign intelligence, running covert ops abroad, and trying to neutralize threats before they can even get close to India's borders.
And then, protecting the home front, you've got the Intelligence Bureau, or IB. The IB is the nation's internal shield. It's tasked with all the domestic stuff: counterterrorism, counterespionage, and fighting insurgencies inside the country. And fun fact, it's actually one of the oldest intelligence agencies in the entire world. It has a very long and storied history.
So you can see this really clear division of labor. RAW looks outward, and it reports directly to the Prime Minister's office, which is key. The IB looks inward, and it answers to the Ministry of Home Affairs. But here's the thing, it's never that clean. The source points out the bureaucratic turf wars and just the intense need for secrecy can create a lot of friction, making that seamless cooperation a constant challenge.
And this unrelenting pressure cooker, from both the outside and the inside, it eventually forces this fundamental, really dramatic shift in how India thinks about security. The country's entire doctrine begins this slow, painful evolution, moving away from a purely defensive stance to something way more proactive. And at times, you could even say openly offensive. And you can literally see how that doctrine was forged in the fire of crisis. I mean, look at this timeline. Every single one of these events was a painful catalyst. The 1962 war with China, that leads directly to RAW's creation. The Kargil War in '99, it exposes these huge intelligence gaps. And of course, the horrific 2008 Mumbai attacks showed everyone the absolutely catastrophic cost of failure. These moments forced India's intelligence community to adapt, and it all culminates in these post-2016 surgical strikes, which was a clear signal of a new, much more assertive strategy.
And that's really the core of this new doctrine. It's a pivot from, waiting to absorb the first punch to deciding to throw it yourself. The focus now is on actively dismantling threats before they can even get off the ground, using what the source calls precise, calibrated, and deniable operations. It's all about seizing the initiative, setting the terms of the fight, and for once, forcing your adversaries to react to you.
So as we start to wrap this analysis up, one thing becomes incredibly clear. In this shadow world, there's no finish line. There's no final victory.
There's only this perpetual, unending cycle of pressure, response, and then counter-response. It just goes on and on.
Exactly. And this quote reminds us that this isn't just about geopolitics or fancy technology. At its heart, it's about people. It's about the agents, the analysts, the decision-makers on all sides who are locked in this high-stakes strategic game of chess that, for all we can see, has no end.
Which leaves us with a final and pretty unavoidable question, doesn't it? In a region that's defined by this relentless, covert rivalry, on an invisible chessboard where every single move just invites a countermove, what on earth comes next?
Ultimately, the key takeaway from all this material is this. In this part of the world, real power, it isn't always demonstrated with big military parades or fancy diplomatic summits. More often than not, it's earned quietly, methodically, in the unseen and unending battles of the Shadow War.
We've reached the end of this analysis. If this episode added value to your day, please leave a like, share it, and subscribe to Strategic Labs so we can keep deconstructing narratives. Remember to check the video description. See you in the next analysis.